Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about email etiquette. Because we are doing so much work virtually, it's a good idea to do a little refresher on this. Just remind yourself and remember the proper ways to send emails, especially to your teachers, or if you're starting to think about applying for college, applying for jobs, you'll be having to send emails. So just a good refresher on the do's and don'ts of sending emails. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what is the PERC. So PERC stands for professionalism, which means, of course, you want to come across as someone who knows what they're talking about. You want to have a professional tone to your emails without being over the top. So don't try and sound too smart or use big words or things that you wouldn't normally say, but you do want to keep it professional. The next thing is efficiency. So writing an email that's clear and brief will make your communication more effective. You don't need to ramble on and on. You can get to your point typically in just a few sentences with whatever you're asking about, concerned about, have a question about. So keep it efficient. The next one is respect. Always remember that someone is on the other end of the email you're about to send. So just make sure that you're being considerate of them and their feelings. And then finally, common sense. Think about what you're saying as you're writing or typing. Just really make sure that what you're saying is clear to your reader. And make sure that they'll understand what you're saying in one email without having to do a lot of back and forth and a lot of follow-up. So next, here's some tips on emailing a teacher. First, you want to make sure you are using your school email account since that has your name linked to it. It's going to be easiest for your teachers to know where that email is coming from. If you're not sure how to get to your school email account, you can find that link through the class link page. That'll link you to your school email account, and that's where a lot of your teachers will be sending the emails that we're going to be sending you. So make sure you are using that school email account. Teachers don't appreciate always getting emails from accounts that aren't very descriptive if we don't know who the email is coming from. Especially if you don't sign your name, it can be kind of hard to figure out who has a question and really what the question's about. The next thing to keep in mind is setting a professional font. Make sure it's easy to read and avoid bright colors. Highlighting your text, anything like that can make it difficult to read. Number 3, you see it there, include a clear and direct subject line. So in the subject, don't leave it blank. Say what your email's about. So if you have a question with something, you could say reading assignment number 3 question. Or if something's not working, you could say Blackboard not working. And then your teacher kind of has an idea of what you're about to ask. Next, number 4, begin with a professional greeting. So for example, good morning, Dr. Franklin. Number 5 is really important. Make sure you spell your recipient's name correctly. So if you do all this other work and don't take the time to make sure that you're spelling their name right, it kind of just doesn't look very good. It makes you look a little bit lazy. So you want to make sure that, especially if you're not completely sure on how to spell their name, double check and make sure that you're spelling their name right. Number 6, avoid using all caps or too many exclamation points. Typically, like I said, you can get your point across with just a few short sentences, so all caps or exclamation points really aren't needed to make your Number 7, this one can be kind of difficult, but don't email when you're angry. So if the subject's a sensitive one, it's a lot of times best to just talk to your teacher or talk to that person face to face. If you can't do that, and you do have to respond by email, just give yourself a little bit of time to cool down before you start writing. Or if you write an email, just sit on it for a few hours or overnight. Go back and read it before you push send and make sure that you still really do feel that way, because sometimes we're a little bit harsh at first and some time kind of cools us off and makes us more reasonable when writing an email that could be considered sensitive. Next up, avoid blaming and excuses. So if there is an issue, if you're late with your work or if you didn't get something finished, just take responsibility and ownership. Number 9, be clear and specific. So all of your teachers have a lot of students. So if you said, for example, the other day in class, you handed back my project, we might not know what class, what project you're talking about. So just be very specific when you have questions like that. Also, number 10, this goes back to being efficient. Just be concise. Say what you need to say in just a few sentences. Number 11, include both your first and last name in your signature. So for example, I have mine there, sincerely, Aaron Edmonds. So you want to make sure, especially if there are other people in your class with the same name, that you include both your first and last name so we know exactly who we're talking to. Finally, just make sure that you're proofreading, use complete sentences, proper grammar, double check everything before you push the send button to make sure that you don't have any errors. The compliment sandwich, this is a good idea if your email is negative in nature at all. Basically, you start with a kind or positive greeting or comment, then you say whatever your complaint or request is. You try and word it gently, so be reasonable. And then number 3, end with a positive comment or thank you for listening. So the example there over on the left says, "Good morning, Dr. Smith. I hope your week is off to a great start. I was hoping you would take another look at the paper that I turned in last Thursday. I'm looking at the rubric and think you may have deducted points in a category where I met the requirements. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, John." So you see, for example, there, it starts off with the greeting, "Good morning, Dr. Smith." Then there is a kind word at the beginning, "I hope your week is off to a great start." You could say, "I hope you're having a great day, hope you're doing well," anything like that. Then it gets to the heart of the complaint and question that the student has. So, "I was hoping you'd take another look at this. Basically, I think you gave me a grade that's lower than I deserved." And then it ends with, "Thank you for your time," and then John. So in this case, we would want to put a last name too, but since I just made up this student, I only wrote the name John, but you would want to do a first and last name in the signature. Okay, finally, this is the last thing. The way you email someone really determines how and when they're going to respond to your request. So you want to make sure that you take your time and do it correctly so that people take you seriously and they respect your request. And now that I am reading through all of this, I see that I do have a typo there. It says "take you time." Sorry about that, guys, but just make sure that you take your time. This is a prime example of what happens when you don't take your time. You end up with typos like that, and sometimes you don't always have a way to go back and fix them. You don't want to send a follow-up email or whatever to address your mistakes. So just make sure that you are taking your time and just being clear with your request.